The Mutiny on the Bounty, ladies and gentlemen. This is one of the best novel, and a movie was also adopted from this novel, The Mutiny on the Bounty. This novel is written by Charles Nordhoff and James Hall. So the story of this novel starts like this. Roger Byam is introduced to the reader, and we learn that he has been extended an invitation by Captain William Blick to embark on expedition to Tahiti to gather breadfruit trees and take them to the West Indies, where they will be planted and their fruit fed to the slaves of English colonists. Byam is expected to formulate a dictionary of Tahitian language. The Bounty set sails in November 1787, and its cruise is introduced to the reader. The ship makes calls on several islands during its journey to Tahiti, and meanwhile conditions aboard the ship begin to deteriorate. Food rots. The crew suspects Blick of hoarding food for himself, and several men are accused of stealing. Discontent is mounting among the crew. Bounty reaches Tahiti, and Byam begins studying the Tahitian language with the aid of some of the natives. Members of the crew begin the task of digging up young breadfruit trees and storing them on board the ship. Many of the men form an attachment to the Tahitian woman, and the realization that the Bounty will soon be sailing from this idyllic life causes grumbling among the crew. Not surprisingly, 3 men desert before the ship leaves. Bounty sets sails for the West Indies to deliver the trees, and early in the voyage, Hyde harasses his crew. Blick harasses his crew. In particular, he accuses some of them of stealing a coconut. His officer, notably Fletcher Christian, begin grumbling over the poor treatment that they are receiving at the hands of Blick. Accordingly, one morning, some of the crew, led by Christian, seize the ship and force Blick, along with some of the Blick's followers, into the Bounty, launched to fend for themselves on the high seas. Those who wish to accompany Blick but cannot because of the already crowded condition in the launch are forced to remain with the mutineers aboard the Bounty. Christian immediately begins sailing the South Sea in search of an inhabited island, but finding none and tired of the complaint of his fellow mutineers, Christian returned to Tahiti, where he drops off those who wish to stay on the island, including Byam. When he resumes his search for an uncharted and uninhabited island, Byam eases himself back into the idyllic life he experienced the first time on the island, and soon he marries a Tahitian princess. A child is born to the couple, and life on the Tahiti continues to be a paradise until an English ship drops anchor at the island. Byam rows out to meet the vessel and is immediately imprisoned as a mutiner, along with the other Englishmen on the island. While taking the prisoner back to England to be tried for mutiny, the ship runs ground on a reef and sinks, but not before the crew and the prisoner have taken refuge in the ship's smaller boats. The small boats make an open sea journey, and finally, after several months of sailing and tortuous condition, they reach land safely. The mutineers are imprisoned aboard another vessel, which takes them back to England to await their court-martial. The court-martial of Byam and his companions begin the testimonies given by the men of the Bounty who make it back to England. Byam and other men are then allowed to present their defenses. The judges deliberate and find Biam, along with 5 of the other 9 men, guilty of mutiny against the bounty. 3 of the 6 condemned men are taken to be hanged, and the other 3, Biam included, are speared the rope only hours before their seemingly inevitable death. Biam is spared because Robert Tinkler, a friend of Biam abroad the bounty, corroborates Biam's testimony at the courts martial concerning his innocence, and the other 2 men are saved from hanging after being pardoned by the proper British authorities. Biam returned to his family home to live out of his life, but is pursued into duty aboard another ship by the ship's captain. The ship battles the Dutch off the coast of Spain and is victorious. Biam is promoted to captain, giving his own ship an order to sail to the South Sea. While there, he sets anchor again at Tahiti, where he learns that his wife is dead, but that their daughter is alive. He meets with Helen, now grown, but does not reveal his identity to her. The novel closes with Biam reviving the events of his past and contemplating the future. So, friends and viewers, this is the story of the mutiny on the Bounty written by Charles Nordhoff and James Hall. The mutiny on. Let us see how many characters are involved in this. Roger Biam, the fictitious narrator character used by author to tell the story of mutiny on the Bounty. Historically, there is no such person as Biam. He is simply a creation of the author in order to dramatize the later portion of the novel. At the beginning of the novel, Roger is 17 years old. He attracts the attention of Captain Blick because of his unique ability to learn quickly and master the intricacies of foreign language. Another character is Captain William Blick, the captain of the Bounty. The ship named Bounty is sailing to Tahiti to gather breadfruit trees, whose fruit will be used as cheap food for the slaves of the British landowners in the West Indies. Blick's strict disciplinary measure will be directly responsible for the seizure of the Bounty by Lieutenant Fletcher Christian, with the crew knowledge that he has been cheating them of their due ration. Another character is Fletcher Christian, one of the ranking officer on the Bounty. Christian comes from the gentle stock and finally finds it impossible to endure all the insult heaped upon him by the Captain Blick. His statement that most men can be ruled by kindness and reason is ridiculed by Blick, and when Christian is accused of theft and alleged conspiracy, he leads the other in a mutiny. Subsequently, he is declared captain of the Bounty. So, another character, John Fryer, master of the Bounty, in spite of the fact that strongly dislike Captain Blick, he is nevertheless loyal to the King's Navy, and is the type of man from Fletcher Christian will not want to have on board Bounty after the mutiny. Another character, Robert Tinkler, is the Mr. Fryer's brother-in-law. We first encounter him victim of Blick's infamous and unjust punishment. Thomas Hayward and John Hallett, these 2 men are the midshipmen who could testify in Biam's behalf. Instead, they want to cover up the fact that both of them cried and whimpered to stay aboard the mutiny after Christian had taken command of the ship. Thomas Hogan, the surgeon aboard the mutiny, the ship's sawbones. Hogan drinks a lot and prescribes alcohol as remedy for every ailment that befalls the crew. David Nelson, the botanist who knows of Byam's loyalty, John Norton, the quartermaster who could have corroborated Christian intention to escape from the Bounty on a raft built by Norton during the night preceding the mutiny. William Purcell, the unpleasant carpenter whose tyranny is suppressed by the tyranny of Captain Blick. Mr. Samuel, the clerk who helps Captain Blick cheat the man. James Morrison, the boatswain's mate. Morrison joins Byam and Stewart in secretly planning to retake the Bounty after Christian has bound Blick. Thomas Allison, the youthful boy who has nothing to do with the mutiny. Captain Edwards, the captain of Pandora, whose mission is to search out Lieutenant Parkin. Captain Edwards, lieutenant aboard the Pandora. Captain Montague, the captain of HMS Hector. Dr. Hamilton, the doctor aboard at Pandora. Sir Joseph Banks, influential friend who is responsible for Byam's first meeting with Blick. So, Mr. Graham and many other characters. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the very interesting story of the mutiny on the Bounty. I hope you will enjoy it when you read the main book. Thank you very much.